I'm gonna start recording. All right, we're good to go. So hello everybody, welcome to the Nightingale Sprint 2 review. It's a 3-week sprint from start of January to today. And let's go through the various bits and pieces. Let's start with platform. Jordan, do you want to take some of these things?
Yeah, so during the sprint, various bugs came up since we're working on general overall stability of ONOS. So most of these are just bug fixes for the core. So the second one in this list, we've seen exceptions when using ONOS form cluster that was fixed. Also, we reverted to the eventually consistent flow rule store, and during that process discovered a memory leak and another bug that could cause flows to be lost, which I think was this long-standing bug that still actually exists, but I figured out how to fix that. And then work on the route store led to fixing bugs with node state changes during network partitions and adding a new distributed lock primitive. So what hasn't been done, ONOS 7348 fixing mastership rebalancing issues needs to be tackled in the next sprint. And then as for the atomics upgrade, I may just delay it till the next release since it's not too critical and we're not using any of the new features anyways, just in the interest of stability.
Okay, that makes sense. Quick question on the flow rule store memory leak. Those are on master and in 112, correct?
Yeah, 1.11 was still doesn't even have that eventually consistent store in it.
Okay. Well, great. All right. Let me move to the next bit. Ray, you want to cover that?
Yeah. So we did a lot of, I don't know, sort of maintenance type stuff on this release in this sprint. We learned that vcheat, the machine that serves up vcheat.org is basically out of our control now. So we were sort of in a pinch. If anything bad happened to it, we were really stuck. So Yuta did some work and I did some work to move the artifacts that we use for the build off of vcheat and onto Maven Central. So that's now in basically any of the builds that we produce, which is 110, 111, 112, and master, are all pulling things now from Maven Central. They're no longer pulling them from vcheat. Along the same sort of janitorial type work, Yuta ran the error-prone tool across the source code, fixed 60 or so errors that were encountered with that. I did a similar stuff with Sonar, fixed about 70 bugs that it found. These are things that are like looking for the wrong type in a collection where it's known that that type will never be there, null pointer exceptions, things that are actually real bugs that could hit us in the wild. And I also implemented a Jenkins job so that we can now do Docker images. So now there's no more requirement for us to build anything on our laptops. It can all be done on Jenkins. That's it, Thomas.
That's great. Thank you, Ray.
The other thing is apparently now Jenkins has the routes to the target machines.
Oh, excellent.
So into the lab, according to Luca.
Okay.
So we can try to test on the
STC, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's good because what we actually, I forgot to put this on here, is we have a fourth machine for running the shared cells. It was briefly put in place, put into action, but we've had still some outstanding issues. So I'll wait it and I will put it back into action this weekend because I'll have to repack some IP address ranges because currently the proxy, the bits proxy, which caches the bits on shared cell warden, it uses an IP address which is kind of hijacking one of those ranges, kind of falls in between. So I would like to move that IP address and realign things. But hopefully by Monday we should have 12 slots for shared cells, which means that Jenkins should be able to start running STC. at least as part of a periodic master build or something like that.
Yep.
All right, ISSU.
So at the beginning of the sprint, or in sprint planning, there wasn't really much for ISSU. I intended to do this ONOS 7350, which was adding fault tolerance and rollback tests in STC. But while I was doing that, I discovered several bugs that I ended up fixing. So one of the issues was that, like, after a rollback, application commands weren't working correctly. So there was a bug in the application store. And then also changing changing back to the eventually consistent flow rule store required a little bit more work from the ISSU side. So there's some work on how ISSU manages leadership and mastership. And then that also led me to a bug in the intent store as well, with how it manages state during upgrades. And so the only pending thing from that work still is finishing up the support for ISSU and the new flow store, the new old flow store, as I call it.
Right, and this will be needed for the Comcast deal, so it'll probably be part of next sprint, right?
Yeah.
Great, because I think the timeline was at the end of January, beginning of February, they would switch from 1.11 to 1.12. Yeah. Okay. Great, this is actually excellent. On dynamic configuration front, Utah, do you want to cover this?
Yes, so actually, I'm not really sure about all of these things, but anyway, so the thing that was done this spring is pretty much on the Yang side. There was various fixes that was discovered through the ODT and other people from the community testing out with Yang and some of them were fixed. And also we now have RESTConf device proxy, sort of a backdoor so that ONOS can just access proxy directly talking to the device via RESTConf. So that's that. And all other things that are ongoing is that we now have a primary consumer of this dynamic config, which will be the ODT and auto disaggregate. I forgot what else that stands for, but we were trying together and recruit some people who are willing to work on dynamic config kind of things on ODT. That's about it, and all others are small stuff that are still ongoing.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Utah. Also, we kind of a little bit of a background on the same topic here, which is not part of the sprint, but still should be affecting the payload of the next sprint. I've had some discussions with Tom Anschutz. I've asked him to provide me feedback on the use case, dynamic config use case that was written up by Ian. So hopefully we'll get some information from him, and also hopefully we'll get a review from Nagesh as well from Comcast. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to use that information to refine the use case and how we steer this forward. Okay, next, P4 runtime. Does somebody want to cover that?
Yeah, I'm here, Tom.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, okay, so we're mostly working for the MWC demo. So we did some progress with GenMI. We have a device description discovery behavior that works on DMV2. We made some progress also with the leaf-spine fabric, the hardware one. We also made progress with the implementation of the SP gateway in P4, both the integration with Fabric and also some testing, and also the implementation of the ONOS application, and we'll control that. We fixed some bugs related to the handling of priorities in P4 runtime table entries, and encoding the coding of again, table entries. What else? We also fixed the bug related to the, this was in the general device provider. Every time we're disconnecting a device, we're getting a null pointer exception. We still have task in progress, which is the integration of SP80.P4 in the actual MCORD pod. and the reason is that we're actually blocked by some core compiler issues. So right now we're unable to compile SPData.p4 in the hardware switch.
Okay. Thank you. We've had no update on gRPC API. I've sent a message, but I haven't received back a response yet. So I'll send another message to Jen and others from Brigade. Similarly to with WebUI, I sent a message to Stephen, but I haven't heard back anything. So I presume no work was really scheduled in a WebUI, and so, there was nothing opportunistic done either, I guess. Again, no response from Line Brigade. Even though I do know that there were a number of bundles translated and finally checked in. I think there's one pending, one for Dutch translation. I'll need to figure out how to get more reliable input from the Brigade leads. On Packet Optical, is Mark there or no? Not today, right? You want to cover that?
Yeah, but yeah, pretty much the Packet Optical workaround Packet Opticals are now covered under ODTN. So we just started a kickoff last week. So there's really no development work happened at the moment, but moving on should happen, starts happening under this ODTN umbrella.
Okay, thank you. I've received a message from Claudine Chu from Virtualization Brigade. She said she's going to be taking a brief break from the work on the Brigade to the Brigade mailing list, and I've forwarded this to William just to let him know. So hence no update from them. All right, we can move to QA.
So there's a couple of, I guess, bigger stories that we did. One was making it easier to switch between Mininet and physical switches and hosts. That'll help a lot with testing deployments like Comcast. We added some more, I guess, testing to the Docker images. Investigated a couple of failures in some of the functionality tests. We're now running the segment routing fabric tests nightly, and we added some more, I guess, reporting for that. Some more improvements to just generally how we graph and report things from Jenkins into the wiki. Let's go to the next page.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess continued improvements to the graph that we make that are posted to the wiki. Some things that we're still working on is adding more fabric tests for both, I guess, DHCP relay functionality and the routing functionality. More refactoring of our Jenkins files in preparation of moving the QA Jenkins onto the ONOS Jenkins. I think we're almost everything that we're doing now we can do on the ONOS Jenkins with how it's set up.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yep.
On the bug side?
Yeah, so there were 17 bugs resolved and 25 created this sprint for a total of 214 bugs. Here are a couple of bugs. Some of them have been around for a while. For example, Sum 405, I just created. It seems like after restarting some nodes, intents don't get recompiled when they bring down links. For example, when I see it, I usually see like 1 or 2 intents out of 10. So I don't know, something's getting lost there. But
yeah. That's interesting because STC does that. We're not seeing that.
we'll have to start paying attention to these really, really quickly because it would be good to flush these before the next release.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Okay. Thanks, John.
Mhm.
A quick question while we're on a bug subject. Do we want to do bug scrub sometimes during the next sprint, just so that we can start? I mean, and I presume these are kind of the top 5, but I assume that there will be probably other ones near the top of the list, so that we can at least discuss which ones are something that we ought to pay attention for next release.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay,
I'll send out a event.
that'd be great. Thanks. Okay, so that's it. The sprint for sprint 2. Next sprint is planning for it starts on Monday, and it'll be a 3-week sprint again to the middle of February. So what I'm going to do with the sprints, with the Jira sprints, I will close them in an hour or so, and I will open new ones for the corresponding brigades or groups, so that people can start dragging items in there in preparation for the sprint 3 planning on Monday. Okay, does it sound all right?
Sure.
Yep.
All right, and I guess with that we can probably call it a day today.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.